we're going to finish 6.8 today. We won't get into the last section like I thought we might be able to, but it needs a whole day for itself. So we're going to talk about increasing and decreasing intervals of functions. Okay, so increase is where the y values are going up. Decrease is where the y values are going down, and constant is where it's going straight across horizontally. So first of all, before we do anything else, let's name, and what I'm doing I'm recreating number 4. Remember we did the first part of 6.8 on Monday. So this is we did the first and last part. So this is the middle problems. This is number 4, and I'm recreating this graph on the board. And the important parts are where this point right here and this point right here, because it's decreasing going down until it gets to this point, and then it's constant, it goes straight across, and then it starts going up after this point. So these 2 points are our important points. So the first thing we're going to do is name those 2 points with their coordinates. So let's see, this point, its x coordinate, since it lines up with the x being -3, its x coordinate is -3, which is the important coordinate. And it lines up with the y at -2. So that point is at -3, -2. This point lines up with the x-axis at +3 and the y-axis at -2. So its coordinates are 3, +3, -2. Now I'm going to go through to each interval on this graph and label which part is increasing, which part is decreasing, and which part is constant. Okay, so this part right here, it's going down. So it's decreasing from forever this way, because that's what that arrow means. It's going forever this way. It's going down until it gets to this point. So it is decreasing here. Now, once it gets to this point, it's going straight across. So this is where it is constant. It's not increasing or decreasing. It's going straight across. Then once it gets to this point, it starts to go up again. So here's where it is increasing. So it's going to ask you those 3 things. Whereas the first thing it's going to ask you is the function is increasing on what interval? So it's increasing on this interval. This is the increase spot. So you're going to use, when you're talking about increasing and decreasing, you're going to use the x coordinates of those start and stopping spots. So here's where it starts increasing, right? It was constant until it got to this point, and then it started going up. So it starts increasing. And we write it as an interval. So it starts increasing here. We use the x coordinate of this point. So it starts increasing at 3. And then it goes up forever. So it's going, the y values are increasing forever. That's what that arrow means to the right of this right here. So that means it's increasing until infinity, forever. So it's increasing from 3 to infinity. The next part says the function is constant on what interval? So again, it's constant from this point to this point. Again, we use the x coordinates to name our intervals. So let's see, it's constant. It starts being constant here at -3. And it's constant all the way to this point, which is at +3. So it's constant from -3 to +3. The last thing it asks is, where is it decreasing? So it's decreasing from forever to the left until it gets to this point. So this point is where it stops decreasing, which means its stopping point is -3. Where did it start decreasing? When your arrow goes forever to the left, that means it's starting to decrease at -infinity. So again, it decreases from -infinity to -3, because I always use the x coordinate. It's constant from -3 to +3. And then it starts to increase at +3 and increases forever to infinity. All right, next one, number 5. And now it's going to take me a second. I'm going to recreate this graph on the board to the best of my ability. Okay, so here's what the graph of number 5 looks like. Okay, now I know you can't see exactly where those points are, but I'm going to go through and name them with their coordinates. Okay, so it might be easy if you have this printed out or bring it up in your course content week 6 folder to see where I'm getting these numbers from. So I'm going to name these important points, which are, there's your constant. So I need to know those 2 points. I need to know this point and this point, and all the points where you are changing direction. So let's see, I'm going to name these 2 points here. So this looks like this is at -9, 8. This one's at -5, 8. So there's those 2 points, right? I need to know the coordinates of those points because that's what I use to name the increase, decrease, and constant. Let's see, this one's at 1, 2. -5, -2. This one's at 1, 7. one's at 3, 7. 5, -1. And 7 or 8. So that one's at 8, 8, 6. So again, I'm just going off of this graph and labeling those points. So now it's going to ask me the three things. It's going to ask me on what intervals is the function increasing, decreasing, and constant. So before I even get to the problem, let's just name what's happening on each interval. This one is going straight left and right, which means that's when it's constant, right? It's not going up or down. From this point to this point, I am increasing. So I'm going up. This point to this point, I'm going down, so that's a decrease. And then once I get here, I start going back up. So here's another increase. So it's kind of like you do all the legwork at the beginning of the problem by going through and labeling each point with its coordinates. And then go through and find out where everything's increase, decrease, and constant. And then you're just going through and labeling them. So the first thing it wants to know is the increase part. So let's see, I did label 2 different intervals as increasing, right? I'm increasing at this interval and then again at this one. But remember, you've already labeled your points, which means I just go through and I'm using those x coordinates. So where did this one, here's my increase. Where did it start increasing? What is this one's x? At -5. And it increased until it got to this point, and its x coordinate is 1. So it increased from -5 to 1. Oh, it looks like I labeled that wrong. This is why I don't like to freehand stuff. So I need to go through and redo this one. Look how it. This point here is where I messed up. It's at actually. It's lined up with the 2. So that's at 2. My bad. 2, 7 right here. Lined up with the 2. Which means it increased from -5 to 2. Sorry about that. It's easier to look at the printed off page than my freehanded drawing. Now it also increases from this point to this point. So again, labeling those points. Where did this one start increasing? Its x coordinate is 5. And it increased until it got to this point, and its x coordinate is 8. So those are the 2 increase spots or intervals. Then it's going to ask you, where is the decreasing interval? So let's see, here's my decrease. I've already labeled it. So again, this one's x coordinate, which is not 2. What is it? Like it's at 3, 7. Oh yeah, I did it right. So this one's at 3, 7. So let's see, where is it decreasing? It starts decreasing here until it gets to this point. So this is the interval where it's going down or decreasing, which is at 3, is its x coordinate, all the way until it gets to this point, which is at 5. So it decreases from 3 to 5. And then once it got to this point, that's where it started increasing again. So there is my increase, my decrease, and now I need to do my last one, which is constant. And here's the interval where it is constant from this point to this point. So let's see, it starts being constant at -9. And then it's constant until it gets to this point, and its x-coordinate is -5. So again, do all the point labeling from at the beginning. So and then go through and label your increase, decrease, and constant intervals. So when you have to get through to actually answering the question, you've got everything labeled out there for you. Okay, let's move on to number 6. So again, now what I'm doing is I'm recreating this graph. So my important points, because if you'll notice, it increases from here until it gets to this point. So I need to label this point. And then it starts going down. So there's going to be a decrease until it gets to this point. So I need to label that one. Constant, increase, constant. So I'm labeling all the important points. So it looks like that top of this point right here is going to be at -7, 3. So there's a constant. So let's name these 2 points. This one's going to be at -5, -1. This one's at -2, -1. And then it started going up again. So this point, this that I'm about to label, the x is clear. It's at -1. The y is kind of in between 2 and 3. So I'm just going to call it 2.5. The y coordinate is not real important when you're talking about increasing and decreasing. So this is at -1, 2.5. And then it's constant from there. So let's go through and label our increase, decrease, and constant. So let's see. Starting from -infinity, it's going to increase until it gets to this point. It's going up. The y values are going up. So this is an increase. When it gets to this point, it starts going down. So this is a decrease. Now, when it goes straight across, that's a constant. So it's constant in between those points. Once it gets to this point right here, it starts going up again. So that's another increase. And then when it gets here, it goes straight across again. So this last part is a constant. So again, label your points, then go through and label the going up as increase, going down as decrease, and going straight across as constant. So let's see, the first thing it's going to say is list the intervals on which the function is increasing. So it's increasing in two spots. It's increasing here and here. So two spots, it's going up. So I'm going to have two intervals that I'm listing. So where does it start increasing? The arrow going down and to the left means it starts increasing all the way to the negative side of the graph. The negative infinity is where it starts increasing all the way until it gets to this point, right? It increases till it gets all the way here. What is the x coordinate at that point? -7. So it's increasing from negative infinity to -7. Let's see, decrease, constant. Here's another increase. So it increases from this point to this point. Using the x coordinates, it starts increasing at -2, and then it goes up or increases until it gets to -1. So from -2 to -1 is the other increase. Then the next thing it asks is decrease. So let's see, the only spot on there, or the only interval on the function where it's going down is this interval right here. It's decreasing from this point to this point. So only one interval is it decreasing. So it's it starts increasing at this point, which is -7. And then it goes down until it gets to this point, which is -5. And the last part, it asks you where it is constant. So it's constant in two separate intervals, right? It goes straight across here, and then it goes straight across here again. So in two intervals, it is constant. So let's see, where did this one start being constant? At this point right here, and its x-coordinate is -5. And then went straight across until it got to this point, and its x-coordinate was -2. So it's increasing from -5 to -2. Then it goes up. But then it starts being constant again. So where does it start being constant? This one's x-coordinate is -1. And then it's constant forever going to the right. What does that mean? It's constant all the way to infinity. From -1 to infinity. All right, number 7. All right, on number 7, I'm not even going to draw hash marks because look at number 7. The actual point that we need, it labels it right there. It tells me where that point is. So I'm just going to draw that upside down parabola. And label it with its x and y coordinates, which are 6.5. 3.25. So it's going to ask me a couple of new things. First of all, it's going to ask me, does this have a maximum or a minimum? So remember when we talked about this earlier, when you have a regular parabola, it has a minimum, right? It has the lowest point at the bottom. When you have an upside down parabola, it's going to have a maximum because it's going to have a top to it, the maximum. So if it's regular U, it has a minimum. If it's upside down, it's going to have a maximum. So this one is going to have a maximum. Now, Then it's going to ask you about the maximum. And if you'll look, it kind of gives you a clue what goes where. It tells you, it says the relative maximum occurs at x equals blank and has a value of blank. So it has two parts that you're going to fill in. X equals blank. So the maximum or minimum value is always the y coordinate, right? This is the top y, the maximum y, the highest point that parabola is going to go. Now it's going to occur at x equals what? So where it says x equals, you just type in the actual x coordinate. So this right here, it occurs at x equals 6.5. And the value is this coordinate right here. The maximum value of that parabola is 3.25. And then it's going to ask you increase and decrease. So let's see, it's going up until it gets to the maximum, and then it's going down. So it increases until it gets to this point. It hits the top, and then it starts going down. So let's see, increase. On what interval? It increases until it gets to this point. Now remember, when we talk about increase and decrease, you're always using the x coordinates of those points. So I am increasing until I get to 6.5. Where did you start going up? Where did you start increasing? Well, this arrow means you started increasing at negative infinity, all the way until you got to 6.5. Now, what happens at this maximum? What do you stop doing and then start doing? You stop increasing and start decreasing. So when it asks you to decrease, wherever you stopped increasing is the same point you start going down. So I'm going to start my decrease at 6.5, and then I'm going to go down forever. Okay, but this time my arrow is going to the right, which is on the positive side. So I'm decreasing forever to infinity. All right, number 8, again, I'm recreating this graph now. So I'm not going to draw hash marks. I'm just going to draw this shape and then label those 2 points like they have them labeled here with those coordinates, with those ordered pairs. Okay, so again, I just drew that shape and then labeled them, those points, with the same numbers that they had their ordered pairs. So it's going to ask me the relative maximum is blank at x equals blank. Maximum. And minimum, because this one has both. right? It's got a maximum because it's got a top point, and then it's got a minimum because it's got the bottom point. Okay, maximum is where you stop going up and start going down, and then minimum is the opposite. It's where you stop going down and start going up. So here's my maximum. What is the maximum value, or the maximum? If it asks you the maximum, it wants to know what is the top y coordinate. So the highest y of this is -1. And it's at x equals what? Well, what is the x coordinate at the maximum? It is -7. The minimum. What is the minimum value? So the lowest y coordinate of this minimum is -9. And it occurs at x equals -3. And then again, it's going to talk about increasing and decreasing. So look, the y values are going up until it gets to the maximum. So this is an increase. And when it gets here, it starts going down. So this little spot in between those 2 points is where it's decreasing. And again, once it gets to this point, it starts going up again. So that is another increase. So the first thing it's going to ask you is, where is the function increasing? So let's see, it's increasing in 2 spots. It's increasing here, then it goes down, but then it's increasing again here. So I've got 2 intervals where it's increasing. So let's see, I'm increasing, I'm starting with the negative arrow. So I'm increasing from -infinity until I get to this point. And the x coordinate of this point is -7. Then I go down for a little bit, but then I start increasing again. What is the x coordinate where you start increasing here? It's -3. And then I increase forever to the right. So I'm going up forever, which means I'm going up to infinity. And then it's going to ask you about decreasing. It's only decreasing in 1 spot, in 1 interval, right? In between those 2 points is where it's going down. So only 1 interval for the decrease. So where do I start decreasing? What is this point's x coordinate? -7. And I go down until I get to this point. And its x coordinate is -3. All right, only 1 more. And the last one just asked about maximum and minimums. Doesn't talk about increasing and decreasing. All right, so again, I'm just recreating this graph. So let's label these 2 important points, right? It's got a maximum value here, and then it's got a minimum or a bottom here. So let's label those 2 points. So this one, its x coordinate is 0, right? It hasn't gone left or right at all. It's only gone up 1. So its x coordinate is 0. Its y coordinate is +1. Then let's label this point. Its minimum point is here. So let's see, its x-coordinate is positive 2. It lines up with the 2. And its y-coordinate is negative 3. So that point is at 2, negative 3. It's going to ask me what is the maximum and minimum. So here's my maximum point. My maximum value is 1 at x equals, what's the x-coordinate at the maximum? 0. So the maximum is at 1, where x equals 0. And then the minimum. The minimum value is negative 3. And where does it occur? It occurs at x equals 2. So the maximum is 1 at x equals 0. And the minimum is negative 3 at x equals 2. All right, we will do the last section on Friday.